Welcome to Naturally Mad. I am Mads, and you are welcome. Oh, that intro is so conceited. I just love it so much. Okay, today, let's start on this growth mindset journey. First thing I want to tell you is a quote that I heard from Savannah. That's all I know that it was quoted by, so I assume that's someone in America. Fear is courage waiting to be known. So we all know that we're all living in this state of like fight or flight. Our parasympathetic nervous system has like taken over our reality. And all of us are sort of living in these quite comfortable, cushy positions, in work, in life, in home life, in families. And we all are wondering why we're kind of feeling a little bit unhappy. We're all wondering, whether there's more for us, that we're not quite living the dream, whatever that is. And one thing that I want to talk about is this concept of fear, because you would have heard it before. What keeps us stuck is the fear of the unknown. And I actually heard it a long time ago when I was a bit younger that it's a very wise thing to be fearing the unknown. I think what they are trying to say is that it's wise to recognize that you fear the unknown. But actually fearing it itself is not wisdom. That's not courageous, So, fear is courage waiting to be known. And why I want to start with that, I'm going to make that the centerpiece of today's conversation, is what keeps us stuck in these, mentalities that we aren't growing, that we don't have a growth mindset, that we want to be somewhere that we're not right now, is that we're scared. Number one, we're scared of just accepting where we are right now. We're scared of being happy in the house that we live in. We're scared of, being happy with how we're raising our children. We're scared of how we see ourselves. We're scared that we are settling for this. We're scared that from not focusing on that growth mindset, not focusing on where we want to be in the future, that we're never going to get there. And it's funny because that is like a paradox in itself, because that fear of not focusing on that thing in the future, meaning we won't get there, is actually what's causing it. Because it's something that's called a lack mentality. And this lack mentality is, oh man, it's brutal. It's like this leech, and it's in everything and everywhere. And what it means is that you are constantly seeing the grass is greener. You are constantly actually focusing your mentality on things that you don't have already, or things that, you would really like, but you make up all these reasons and excuses that you can't have it, or that it's not possible right now. So what happens then is we cultivate this idea from what we know, from everything that we've experienced in our life to date. And this can be subconscious stuff that we didn't even know we have absorbed. But what happens is we then look at this thing and go, oh, we need XYZ to get there, to have that thing and to actually hold it as this tangible thing in existence. And what that does, it does a few things. So energetically, in your energy body, that is reinforcing the fact that you don't have it. So even emotional body. So everything is intertwined. Everything is connected. So what that does in your emotional body and your energetic body is reinforces that lack, reinforces that bad feeling of, I really want that. Why can't I have it? Why not me? And keeps us in that spiral, So when we're talking energetic and let's talk manifestation, because usually if you're looking at a growth mindset, you're wondering how to manifest, and you've probably heard of it. So that is number one, is recognizing if you are pining over something, say a person, let's put it into like a romantic concept, because I think that's a little bit more tangible. Everyone can relate to that a little bit more through movies, music. It's a very high level emotion that most of us have experienced. So when we put it into like, the perception of a partner, I'm heterosexual, so a guy, and keep that in mind for the future because I'll forget to mention it. So for a guy, I pine for them. Let's say you're pining for this person as like a very obvious example. If you're pining for a person, they aren't in your existence at that time. Usually they are physically away. Even if they are with you, you're like pining for their attention. There's an emotional disconnect. There's a thinking disconnect, something there that means you don't have that already. That is the same with literally anything in our existence, because the reality is an actual truth of reality. Quantum physics, every sort of science out there will tell you this. We exist on a wave of energy and frequency. What does that mean? Okay, so from a very layman's basic understanding of it, the atoms that make up everything have little vibration pulses in them. And that is what creates the illusion of matter. So it's essentially something that's moving so fast that we can't see it. Obviously, it's beyond microscopic. It's moving so fast that it creates physical form because of the pressure it's putting on other things. Loose understanding, but just for today's conversation. So when we have that in mind, that everything's actually existing on this frequency, and a frequency is energy, because let's think of microwaves. So a microwave uses the energy to create waves to heat something. So it is not a far-fetched concept. So when we talk about manifestation energy, there are waves that we are emitting from our brain's functionality, because this is a radio tower that is connecting with other things outside of ourselves, because everything is just particles and atoms and made of the same stuff, ultimately. So anyway, getting a little bit off topic. But I guess I'm reinforcing why it is so important to have this mindset and mentality and to grow from it, to understand that you are not in lack. And it's not necessarily that you have to, trick yourself. You recognize that you don't live in the house that you would like. You recognize that. You're aware of it. And that's where the practice of gratitude comes in, where you are grateful for what you do have. You're grateful for the house that you live in right now. And there is a very fine line that I have found between that gratefulness and it's going to the opposite end of the spectrum, So there's the grass is greener, where it's like, oh, it's not the house that I would like. But then there's this other side of the spectrum where people go, oh yeah, you should be so grateful for this house. It's so beautiful. Like, people don't have houses this nice. And that actually brings it down to a negative spiral. So at least you were in a positive spiral before. When you actually use negative connotations to bring yourself back into that balance, sure, it's great for the balance, but usually those mindsets will bring you further, and then you will suppress or, belittle your desire. So it actually then, again, pushes that manifestation or desire away because you're belittling it. So how do you have this sweet spot in the middle, right? We've all heard of the concept of letting go. It seems like this crazy out of reach concept, because you go like, it's not a tangible thing. How do I just like put it down and let it go? It's a thought, or it's a desire, or it's a dream, or it's a, whatever it is. So how do we just put that down? It's not that you let it go in that sense. How would I describe it? I would describe it as acceptance, more so. So most people that have gone through some sort of rehabilitation process or some sort of, therapeutic process with a mental illness, we've all heard of this concept of acceptance. And it usually goes hand in hand with letting go. So I'm going to try and describe it in a different way that will resonate. Let's describe it as living in the now moment. Let's go to a spiritual side of things. Right now, here's the scenario. Right now in your existence, can you do anything about it? No. Right now that you are listening to me in this screen and I'm connecting with you, and hopefully this is sinking in, can you do anything about any of your problems? Or are you focusing your attention on this and absorbing new information that will improve those problems in the future? What is happening is you absorbing this information then turns it into neural pathways in your brain, and it transmutes it into learned behavior. And then now it's becoming a tangible thing. You will adapt those thought processes for actions in the future. So that is what a growth mindset is all of these things you're absorbing in your every single moment of existence, no matter what it is. It can be me. It can be looking at a picture that's sitting on your desk. It can be reading an article. It can be a video, a movie. It can be a TED talk, or going and visiting a guru in a monastery somewhere. It can be all these things. It doesn't matter what it is. It is you absorbing it into your neural pathways, and then from that information, choosing your action when an opportunity arises. So every moment is an opportunity to learn in your mind and absorb it into, again, the neural pathways. But when you do understand and live in that moment of what is in your capabilities, what you are able to contribute to or address or choose an action with, when you are aware of that and notice it, that is when you start letting go. That is when you start to accept. That is when your external reality, your world, starts to respond, because your actual nervous system, the radio tower from your brain. So if you want to read more on that, Dr. Joe Dispenza, hands down, talks about it in a very detailed physics perspective with diagrams and all sorts of stuff. It's fantastic. That's where I learned about it. And there's a lot of information to back it up. You know, he's not the only one, obviously, but if you want a starting point, it's great. So when you start to exist in that experience of what is actually capable of being changed, what you can actually grow from right now, your nervous system starts to smooth out. The waves that you are emitting from your brain, like, you can feel it. Like when you're stressed, when you're anxious, when you're you need something, you want something, it gets this energy, right? It's in this energy of like, oh, why don't I have that? And it's like a really frustrating, like jittery energy. And you can feel it. When that smooths out, when your thoughts start, calming down, going slower, not constantly desiring something else, not constantly, because what that does, it's essentially saying to your experience, your perception, your reality, your universe, it's saying, no, this isn't good enough. Like, where is the next thing? And your universe is constantly trying to keep up with that. So think of it like a program on a computer. Or even AI, if you're constantly putting in new prompts, how is it ever going to load? If you're constantly, creating a CAD design or a Revit design, and, and then you think, oh, I want to change something, and then you go back and try to change it again. Computers, as an obvious example, will constantly have that little death wheel, right? And then eventually it just freezes. That is your human system. We are the most complex computer that exists. We are just a biological one. And that is what the observer is. We are the little thing in here, in this computer system, that is listening to the mainframe data input, which is our brain, or the data collection center, because the data input would be the eyes and the senses and the touch and smell and all sorts of stuff. And then the power is from the heart space and somewhere else, and anyway, it's a whole analogy. I have whole analogies somewhere. I thought of it once. But we're getting sidetracked a little bit. So you can feel it. It's this stressy sort of anxious energy, and we don't like it. So when you come back and you focus on what is actually capable of doing right now, you start to focus. You start to give your reality space to be able to render those things, render those opportunities. Because I'm not saying that, actually, I've looked a lot into manifestation specifically, as I'm quite a spiritual person, but I'm also extremely scientific. I'm also extremely skeptical. So everything I look into with a grain of salt. I go and trial and error it, and then I apply it how it appears to work in my reality, in my experience. So with manifestation, it's that I have that desire. I refocus on what I can do right now in this now moment, which I guess we can also say as in this focus. When you focus on whatever it is you are doing with all of your attention, that is what they are talking about by living in the now moment. So it is just focusing, intently focusing, which is actually how to meditate. You are intently focusing on something, which I can do a little how to meditate at some point. Find it on my school community. Maybe I'll do like a classroom of like all these little spiritual things and how to like actually apply them practically to help slow this, data collection center down, this programming down. So bringing it back to your focus, allowing things to render into existence, allowing the energy to, be sent out into the world, come back to us, because everything is a big cycle, and that's, actually how a wave is. I saw a diagram once and it was fantastic. It was essentially like a spiral, but then if you turn the spiral, it turns into the wave. So, but if you look at a spiral from this way, it's a circle. It was fantastic. I was like, oh my God, it was like a big light bulb for me. So it is all about the perception of how you look at things. Isn't that interesting? It all comes down to perception. You release the energy, goes back out into the world. The opportunity will come. It will. And if we talk about it from like a fate or like a chance perspective, let's take manifestation out of it. Let's take the desires out of it, because that actually misinforms you. That actually distracts you from the opportunity that's presented. So when I say there's this manifestation of this dream life or whatever it is, you have already had it built into you your entire human journey so far. It's already within you. You are made with that desire. So we don't actually need to like send these things out really to the universe or to whatever you believe in, to the frequency of existence, whatever. So you don't actually need to do that. But what you do need to recognize is when these opportunities arise, whatever they are, the only thing we actually are in control of in this human journey, in this existence, is how we choose to act when we receive stimuli, when we receive an opportunity. And why I say when we receive stimuli or an experience, because not every opportunity appears good. Good is something we've learned. Good is something that's in our brains that we've been conditioned, we've been told, our environment tells us, past experiences. And I feel like a hypocrite saying that, because I have a crippling fear of something bad happening. So I get it stuck in this like really avoidant procrastination phase sometimes, not all the time. Because I'm human, I'm a person, I'm still going through this journey, I'm not perfect. These things still arise. It's a constant noticing. But you get better at it, you get more regular at it, and I can openly talk about it and admit it, which is more than I can say for a lot of people. So when you're focusing and then you, again, have some external stimuli and shift your focus into that stimuli, you can process what's happening. And instead of reacting from a subconscious learned behavior place, you've learned new things. So it becomes not subconscious. You're transmuting those reaction, emotive controls or whatever else it is. And you decide the path you want to take from that stimulus. That is what manifesting is. That is what, regaining the control over your free will is. It's having a grounded, calm focus on those stimuli and opportunities to then choose the path. So we are manifesting our journey in every single now moment. Absolutely. Right now, I have chosen in my path that I want to share this information with you. I don't know whether anyone's going to hear it. I don't know whether it's going to resonate with anyone, whether it help anyone. I hope it does. But that is not up to me. That's the beauty of it. That's the thing. That's up to fate. That's up to the universe. That's up to chance, whatever you want to call it. But what is within my control is to provide the information from what I've learned through this journey of trial and error. And my hope and desire for that information is to make someone else's journey a little bit easier, a little bit less alone, a little bit less trial and error and, oh man, that really didn't work. So that's my desire, as an example. And so I think I'm going to leave it there. I think that is sufficient information to share with you today. I hope that some of this gives you a bit of an insight. I hope it helps you in your day. I am so proud of you for embarking on this journey. Be proud of yourself. It's so important. This is the only life we have. I'm a big believer in YOLO. I'm not going to be jumping out of planes. But you do only live once. So you got to do what you want to do. What you want to experience in this life, what you desire. It's the only opportunity you get. Especially with this day and age where people are starting to say there's nothing after death, or they're talking about things after death and we don't understand it. Absolutely. I love that I named both ends of that spectrum. But also, I guess that's more to the point, is it doesn't matter. Because in this experience right now, what can you do with it? It doesn't matter what happens after death. It's irrelevant to your right now. What do you want to experience? What do you want to do? What are you going to focus on? And then with that focus from a clarifying place. I was going to say clarity place, but when you have clarity, where is it going to take you? Are you going to start looking at your journey as like a choose your own adventure book? Or are you going to leave it out of your control because it's helpless, because it's hopeless, because it's not real, because it's hard, because it's scary? A lot of the times the things we want to do, they're scary, yeah, and it gets scarier into adulthood. It's because we have those consequences. When you're a kid, you don't know what the consequences are. You don't know what could possibly happen. That is the only difference between adults and children. Children aren't aware of the consequences, aren't aware of, responsibilities and risks and all this sort of stuff. We're taught all of that. We're taught it from people that aren't us. We're taught it from people that were too scared to do it for themselves. So why would we think that anyone else has taught us what's right for us, taught us how to have courage. We see it on movies, but then we're so desensitized to it because we know it's like a story. It's a movie. Have you ever considered that maybe this world and this life is your own personal movie? The yogis consider it that way. Maybe that's why they sort of put it in that light. Because it's just a story. And we put so much meaning behind it in all sorts of different ways that eventually it becomes so crippling with pressure that we don't end up doing any sort of story. And then there are those stories we hear when they look back and they're an old woman, old man. And you see the two. They are looking at their life's journey as a story. And they wouldn't change anything. They would change everything. It depends. So would you rather be the old person on their deathbed that wouldn't change anything? Because they're not going to remember how many bills you paid. They're going to remember the risks you took. Okay, again, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I love you so, 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 so much. I'm so proud of you, and have a wonderful day.